Battlefield 2042 Season 3 is in full swing, and now that I've actually had the chance to sit down and get some time into it, I'm pretty confident in saying that this is the best season of content DICE has delivered so far. But the question remains, is it worth your time and or money? Let's take a look, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. It's not only helpful, it is mandatory. Let's hit it. While this isn't necessarily a full in-depth review of Season 3, I wanted to provide an overview of the new content as well as my thoughts on each new thing, so let's start with the biggest new addition, which is of course the new map, Spearhead. Now while I stick by my points made in my Battlefield 2042 1 year later review, in that we have received an absolutely underwhelming level of content with only one new map per season, I'm really happy to report that Spearhead is the best map in the game currently. Not counting the portal maps of course, because Caspian Border is really hard to beat for me, but DICE has really stepped it up with the overall design, flow, and visual fidelity for Spearhead. I mean, this almost looks like a different game or engine. The map is truly gorgeous, like actually gorgeous, and while I wish it were a bit more distinctive visually, it has a lot of really cool new assets with crashed drones, terrain deformation, and of course the IKEA cubes. Taking place in Lapland, Sweden, the map is much more of a traditional Battlefield design in that it is pretty narrow. It's actually a lot more linear, almost like a Battlefield 3 map, which honestly has its pros and cons, with the pros outweighing the cons. While this can result in one team dominating the other and pushing them back into their spawn, for me it creates a much better experience where a front line can actually exist and it's not just absolute chaos on all sides like Stranded was. I really enjoyed Exposure, and from a design perspective it's an impressive map, and actually looking at its dynamics of the upper control points, the tunnels, and sheer verticality and size, it's probably, to use a completely overkilled marketing term, the most next gen map. But from a gameplay perspective, Spearhead is superior and just feels much better and lends itself much better to traditional Battlefield gameplay. Visually, I do think the cubes are pretty cool. I really enjoy the interior effects and animations as you can see these futuristic automated factories pumping out these parts, but firefights in these areas do leave a bit to be desired, and outside of a few cement columns, there's really no destruction to speak of. No blasting apart machinery or walls, and the interiors look exactly the same before and after the battle, which is just really disappointing. And that leads me to a criticism of the map that has been present in really all of them, is just the lack of destruction. Now you can blow the shell off the cubes and even get inside of the walls. That's a weird sentence. Which is really appreciated, but other than that, everything just feels so static and sterile when it comes to destruction, which is of course a giant shame. I would have liked to see maybe one more type of dynamic element to the map, maybe a monorail or something that traveled the length of this little valley and maybe even could have connected and had different interactable elements like train cars or something. But overall, I do think it's an excellently designed map that stands among some of the better maps in the series. Not one of the best, but great work here, DICE. I just wish we had more of it more often. Season 3 also surprised me by adding not one, not two, but 3 new weapons and 1 new throwable, of which I've only unlocked 1 yet. Which again, given the content we saw in past Battlefield DLC drops, is again underwhelming, sadly. I don't know how much more I can beat that drum, so let's just move on. In Season 3 we see the Rorsk MK4 railgun, a reference to Battlefield 4's Last Stand Rorsk rifle pickup, the NVK S22 smart shotgun, the NVK P125 bullpup pistol, and returning from Battlefield 5 throwing knives as a new throwable item. I actually think they were in Hardline as well. So far I've only played around with the Rorsk, so I can't really speak to the shotgun, knives, or pistol, but the railgun is a really unique and intriguing addition. I'm glad they're feeling a lot more comfortable embracing the futuristic setting of 2042 in Season 3 and having a little bit more fun with it, because for the most part we just don't really see anything that takes advantage of the setting like it should outside of some of the drones. What I'm saying is, DICE, give me more Battlefield 2142. The Rorsk features 3 different ammo types, which are just really different firing modes, with a charged up one-shot headshot sniper shot, a burst fire mode I found underwhelming, and a full auto mode that requires a quick charge. The aesthetic, animations, sound effects, really everything about this weapon is head and shoulders above the base weapons. It just feels really polished in many ways and honestly isn't as completely broken as I feared, considering it has almost hit scan like velocity and essentially no bullet drop. Again, I'm just happy to see DICE get a bit more experimental here with their weapons and actually have some fun with the designs. If 2042 had had this aesthetic across the board, it just would have been appreciated by me so much more, but at least we're getting these improvements now. I'll only mention this briefly because again, I haven't unlocked or even driven it yet, but but there is a new main battle tank called the EMKV-90 Tor, and it's essentially a railgun with treads, and again, the audio and visual design of this tank is awesome. It has a unique type of siege mode which locks down your movement and allows for faster firing. I wonder where they got that idea. But what a cool thing, although I do think main battle tanks are still extremely underpowered in 2042, with a sad lack of options to counter the many anti-tank options in the game. I'm still happy to see new interesting mechanics added with the new content. Also, it's a railgun tank. It's badass. What more could you want? Being a 2042 season, we of course get an epic new hero character, or specialist, with Rashid Zane, a new assault class specialist who brings with him another little bit of Battlefield 4 nostalgia with his unique gadget, the XM307A airburst launcher. While it's not the most exciting thing to just see what was a standard Battlefield 4 gadget brought back as a specialist trait, it's still nice to see this thing come back. I can't say I used it a lot back then, and in my brief time with it so far, it works pretty well, and again adds some new elements to the gunplay. With the airburst rifle, you can aim and set a distance at which the airburst will explode, dealing damage in an area, and as you can imagine, it's a pretty great way to flush out those pesky enemies behind cover. It has a slight skill curve as you can easily overshoot and do nothing to enemies in the open, or expose yourself to fire, so as far as specialist gadgets go, I think it's middle of the road. Rashid of course also has a unique trait called Perseverance, which when scoring a kill cranks the saturation on your game up to 100% and kickstarts your health regeneration. Yes, that's right, Rashid Zane is a vampire. Kind of. I found it really useful actually, and conducive to a running and gunning playstyle. It's not as powerful a trait as McKay's faster ADS movement speed, but I'll say it's one of the better traits in the game considering how often you trade fire with enemies in firefights, and if you win, you get a little boost to re-engage much faster. Again, this will take more time to fully analyze, but so far, I think it's a pretty good trait for sure. Season 3 also brings about the much anticipated classifications of specialists, but when that will be exactly has not been stated, so it may be next month or even into 2023. Now, outside of the new content, Season 3 introduced much needed improvements in many other ways. Performance overall on PC has been increased, with some users reporting an increase in FPS of up to 25 or 30, which is massive. Vehicles have been split into more distinctive categories, and the amount has been tweaked per map, which is a huge improvement to infantry gameplay overall. More vault weapons have been added with the XM8 and A91, with still a disappointing lack of progression in skins, but their addition is nice to see. And of course, a new battle pass, which honestly is probably the best one yet, as it actually contains military style skins that fit much better into the game in my opinion. Now all that being said, is Battlefield 2042 Season 3 worth picking up or playing? I think yes, it is. On sale. There are so many sales for this game now that I beg you not to pick it up for full price, because while I think it's a really good time, probably worth about 10 to 20 bucks. There's still glaring flaws that will seemingly never be addressed. With this season, I'm seeing a lot of sentiment online that this is a comeback on the level of Battlefield 4, and I just have to disagree entirely. It's better, certainly much better, but it's still missing so many core elements and polish that make a truly great Battlefield game. A lack of real and meaningful destruction, no squad management to speak of, more squad points and coordination not being there, improved vehicle models and damage models being sorely needed, lack of leaning and peeking from cover. The list is still lengthy as far as what needs to be fixed for this game to reach the heights of previous entries. I'm extremely happy they're improving it because I love Battlefield and also dropped $80 on this game like a chump, but it's nowhere near where it should be 1 year after launch and into this third season. Let me know how you're liking Season 3 in the comments. That's it for me today. Until next time.